So Amory and Amy, we often hear from like employers that a skill that's probably fairly rare is the ability to work as a member of a team, but you can understand a lot of different settings. That's actually a very valuable skill. To the extent that we develop that, what do you expect out of group work? Or maybe another way to get, why is that something students sometimes struggle with? Like, that was my memory of college, is I always hated being assigned to a group. I'd rather go off by myself and work individually, and you'd have professors
you were the
say,
alpha
You were
male.
a perfectionist.
it's part of it. But
Yeah.
whether it's discussion where you've got some responsibility to other people, or
Yeah.
a project, paper, or presentation.
I think that's I think in some respects, for history majors in particular, because we do have a lot of students who, you're a very strong student and you really, you have a solid work ethic and you have a high standard for what you want to produce, which you should, but then that can be difficult because group projects are about giving up control as much as they are taking responsibility. And so I think that something that your responsibility is within a group is to not just, you have to make you have to be an advocate for yourself, say, here's what I think that I'm good at, or here's what I think I'd be comfortable doing, because I don't have a lot of sympathy when students will come after and sort of confess and say, well, I really wanted to do this part. That's part of what we're trying to help you with, is to advocate for yourself. At the same time, you also have a responsibility to not just see your piece as what you need to do best, but to also figure out how your piece supports the work that other people are doing, which I think is something that's learned over time. I don't think that comes naturally right away.
I think this is where we actually bring intellectual skills with sort of street smarts, in the sense that you have to be willing to recognize where your own strengths are and advocate for them, as Amy said. But then you also have to be willing to recognize where your weaknesses are and look for somebody else in the group who can complement your strengths with, their strengths. You might be in an area where maybe you're not quite as strong. And that's the beauty. And I think when it actually works really well, you produce something really quite beautiful, because you're bringing then the value of a lot of different strengths. And the thing is, not everybody has book smart strengths. No. That's not the only kind of, strengths that are out there. So if someone has creativity, that can really add to your group's presentation or group's work in a way that maybe you with the book smarts, that would be me, I don't have the creativity. So I need to, find those people to work with.
Right. I think that it's about remembering that you might be telling one story, but figure out how you tell the story best. So if you're the person who thinks, I really think visually, I really like to be creative. I think this is where you and I do complement each other. That, you have the book smarts. I enjoy telling visual stories and actually doing oral story. So there's different ways to say we have no one's responsible for one particular goal. Everyone has the same goals, but it's how do you flesh out those goals. And I do think a challenge for students, at least that I feel like I see, is even though we're in this highly connected society and there's all of these mechanisms for communicating, I'm amazed at how students will not communicate with one another. And so I think that one of the first things that you should do is set up, how are you going to communicate with each other? Because that's another thing I see students suffer from, is saying, well, I didn't know when so-and-so wanted to get together. That you have to, from the outset, say, I don't know if anyone calls each other anymore, but do you text each other? Do you email? How are you going to, what is your mode of communication with each other going to be?
And I think to some degree it needs to be face-to-face. I think one thing that makes it easier nowadays is you've got a lot of collaborative tools out there. Like, I was struck, the last semester I had group presentations. Everyone used whatever Google's version of PowerPoint was. And it's clearly they collaborated. It was also clear they probably hadn't talked face-to-face because you had style differences. And you hadn't just sat with the whole thing. And I was talking with Professor Mulberry about this the other day, because we work together a lot. I think it's partly because we have some gifts that complement each other. Of course, we understand each other. It's also because we just talk a lot. We spend a lot of time just kind of brainstorming together. And at least as an initial step in whatever group work you're doing, I think that's important. I think one thing that's really cool about group work is we pay a lot of lip service to things like humility and empathy as being outcomes of a history major. And I had a student ask once, do you think that actually works in the real world? Do you think history majors are more empathetic towards other actual people rather than just the people they read about? Are they actually more humble? And this is a place to actually test some of that. It's one thing to claim that as you write a reflection paper in one of our classes. It's another to actually sit with someone else where you think you are incredibly bright and gifted, and to recognize, no, I'm weak in some of these areas.
Well, yeah, not just weak, but to say maybe you think you could have done it as well, but the point is that you don't get to do everything. And I think that that's a big part of whatever workplace that you enter into eventually is to decide, even if you feel like you could have done it, that part of being part of that humility is letting other people shine, and the practice of taking joy in seeing them succeed.
Right. And not to, inject relationship advice, but this is the best relationship.
Yes.
The best relationship is not where you just compliment, but where you actually make the other person better because of your strengths maybe and your weaknesses, and vice versa. You make the other person better. And I think that would really be the goal, I think, in group work.